Hello, everyone. This is Jim Okerzinski with your Week 7 lecture video. And I may add, this is also the last lecture video of this 8-week summer semester. Any issues or topics that need to be handled will be handled in this week's upcoming screencast video. So, in taking a look at the chapter 4 areas that we'll focus on at this point, want to cover a few things as you prepare to make that transition from the first draft to the final draft that'll be due next week. I just want to move over to the textbook here. So oftentimes when I review first drafts, I also talk about a couple of questions, or I mention a couple of questions and how you're going to answer the so what and who cares question. The so what question is just directly, I should say, links to society. How does your topic or what you're writing about affect society? How can they benefit? If it's a problem that needs to be solved, how can they solve it? In other words, you have to find some area of commonality between your topic and what you're writing and the reader. Also, the who cares is people. How does it really matter to people? How can you turn your topic into a conversation that will appear really interesting and affect people so that draws them into what you have to say? Instead of going source by source and regurgitating information, how does it affect people? How does it affect society? How are you therefore writing for reader interest? So, on page 131 in the Curious Researcher, Ballinger provides 4 good points about writing about your particular topic, right? How do you put a face on that topic? Writing and ending that adds something rather than tells reader what they already know. It's kind of like one of the pet peeves of reading research essays is the fact that you're just regurgitating information. You're telling me what I already know. The idea here is, as a reader, how do you attach this to people in society, right? So you want to take a look at this section about working common ground and putting people on a page. A famous portion of this is really that I like to quote all the time to students is essayist E.B. White. Many of you might remember E.B. White from Charlotte's Web, but once advised that if you want to write about humankind, you should write about a human. So you want to turn around and see if you can put some examples, or if you've used interviews, how do you inject what the people have, the information they've told you, their stories, how do you put those on paper? I think it's really, really important. So in using the interviews, and remember, you want to write a strong ending. Don't regurgitate and just restate everything you've already covered on. I think our reader gets all of that already. How do you want to leave the reader? It's very important. I know some of you have heard this, but 3 most important sentences in an essay is going to be the very first sentence is the first thing a reader reads. The last sentence of the first paragraph, typically where the thesis statement is, the claim of your main point, something that will direct the reader. And then, as always, it's going to be the last sentence. How do you leave the reader? How do they walk away? The same thing can be said for a strong ending, a strong conclusion. Leave the reader something that they can take away. Good tips in here about endings to avoid. I urge everyone to take a good look at that. All right. So Ballinger talks about using surprise, and more so what I want to talk about here is writing with sources. How can you integrate the source material in there seamlessly? You know, I don't need titles of articles. I don't need a lot of extra information. The information that sits in a citation, if I want it, I can go there and look at your information in the works cited page. I'm looking for you to have a conversation with authors. I think this is very critical. It's easier to have a conversation about a topic when you imagine that you're having a conversation with a person. I've never looked at one article that talks to me. Article can't talk. An author, if you were in face-to-face, can talk to you. Articles can't. They're just methods to deliver information. So the idea here is how do you make your research essay a conversation, and how do you get to synthesizing the sources and the moves that writer make is a good section here to read through. How do you can you draw those common elements of your source material? What do they have in common? How do they differ? How do you synthesize the information so you can make those moves from one source to another without going source by source by source by source? And each paragraph covers source information. That's, in my mind, a lot of times it may look like an essay, may sound like an essay, but in essence, it's like a glorified annotated bibliography. You're going one source to one source. What's happening is that you don't have the common elements. You're not drawing from that information and having a conversation where you are directing what's being talked about as opposed to letting the source do all the heavy lifting. Ballinger talks about handling quotes and how to blend them together, how to have active and passive blending. You might look at this in some of the using and citing sources in the video material that's posted up in Blackboard. Talks about the quote sandwich, and then how you can try to avoid that kitchen sink upload. I've seen a few of those in the first drafts where you just throw everything in. And remember, controlling quotations is critical for your success and really trying to synthesize the sources and present a conversation. Also, for those of you who are using interviews, and I've had a few, look at handling interview material in your particular essay drafts. All right. So this covers most of the information that comes together to really provide a seamless, not a transition so much as an integration. That's what I want to say. Integration for your source material. Remember, about 10 to 15% of an essay is supposed to be quoted material, so you might want to look at that and look at your count. Exercise 5.1, discussion board 11. I'm going to cover that here. Okay, talks about highlighting parts of your draft, and it's really to do with an electronic document here where you can turn around and see exactly how much of the words of others you are using versus your conversation, your writing. So you want to make sure that you take a look at this activity. It's due at the end of the week. I know it's a bit much, but it is the end of the semester. So that being said, this wraps up the ideas behind Chapter 4 and some things you should take a look at before pulling together your final draft. As always, I will be reviewing first drafts and providing feedback. Look for those. Probably should have those wrapped up by the weekend. All right. Good luck.